Despite winning the league this season for a second time, it was still a season of disappointment for Glory Hunter, because we didn't add no new trophies to the cabinet, which is our ultimate priority. So the Premier League win is great, but the loss on penalties in the semi-final of the Champions League and Man City knocking us out early in the FA Cup definitely hurts more. And I can't help but thinking the City job opening up could be an interesting move. I know Chelsea has great players, but City have generational talents like Bellingham, De Bruyne and Erling Haaland. So I took all of your advice and I bit the bullet and I applied for the job and I sat and waited. And after about 10 days of waiting, they approached me for an interview. They even started to dig out their former manager Mourinho, and they mentioned their massive £215 million budget. And the press seemed to think I'm the favourites for the job. And they were right. Manchester City offered me the job and I accepted. How many of you expected that so soon? But things is going to be tougher because the Premier League champions I just left hired Pep Guardiola. In the other leagues, the only real shock was how close PSG came to losing the title to Monaco. A signing I was planning to make at Chelsea I made here instead, and I brought in Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus for £55 million after he requested a transfer coming off the back of a 23-goal season. Julian Alvarez was concerned by this and mentioned that he wanted to leave, so I sold him the other way for £42 million. I felt like the full-back positions were the only real weakness for City, and that's why I went for Luca Netz for the left-back role at Gladbach. The young German has developed incredibly well, and we struck a deal for around £66 million after clauses. And we got the deal done. I'm very happy with that purchase. Joshua Kimmich is already at the club, but I couldn't help but also bringing in Fred Sneijder, who moved to Atalanta for £47 million, as he also allows Kimmich to go CDM if needs be. So going into our first game in Manchester, we spent a total of £158 million while selling £79 million, so there is still some of the budget left. And in our first game against Blackburn, I am trying to put a 3 up top formation right with high wing backs to try and create as many chances as possible. I'd say it worked out, and the Omega Luke Erling Haaland combination started beautifully with Haaland scoring a total of 4 goals against Blackburn in a game where, check this, we had 43 shots and 18 on target. Despite conceding 5 goals, the Blackburn goalkeeper had a 7.1 average rating after this game for all of the goals he actually prevented. Then we went straight into a game against Liverpool, and their star striker Nunez opened the scoring. Laporte pulled one back on the stroke of half-time, tapping in a rebound, and Vlahovic scored his first goal for us in the 74th minute. But we gave Van Dijk too long on the ball and he picked out Nunez, who made it 2-2. And despite dropping those points, we still had a great start to the season, winning the next 3. Coming up though was PSG, followed by the Manchester derby against the European champions, and the Chelsea game with both managers against their former clubs, lurking at the start of October. And we closed the transfer window with no other transfer activities. Our next opponents, Burnley, had the one and only Paul Pogba, which I didn't expect. He also got himself a straight red card in the 3-0 win we got over them. We take to the Champions League against PSG, and what a performance for the citizens, because we did not just only stop scoring goals. Starting with Osman's goal in the 3rd minute, Mbappe did make it 2-1, but very soon after, Erling Haaland got his first of 2 goals, and we were back in control to eventually put a 6-1 up before Mbappe scored his 2nd, and even then, we went on and scored our 7th. And it's on to the Manchester derby, where we were humbled by a very good Manchester United team who put themselves 2-0 up before Bernardo Silva pulled one back for us. But United were the better side on the day, and Patrick Schick scored their 3rd, and we lose for the first time. We bounced back well, picking up 3 wins, but the Chelsea match loomed ever closer. We do go into that match off the back of another loss though to Tottenham. With Vlahovic, Foden, Fred Sneijder and Laporte out for this Chelsea match, we definitely weren't considered favourites. And Pep Guardiola decided not to bring any new players into this Chelsea side. The scoreline compared to the statistics were very different, but Kevin De Bruyne was good when you looked at either. And although the score stayed 1-0, Cucurella did get himself a straight red card when he snapped the goal scorer from behind. But this statistic suggests we dominated, having 23 shots and 13 on target. Back in Europe, and Juventus caused us some trouble scoring early on, and again, despite us creating 20 shots, we only managed to score 1 ourselves. So an up and down October, we sit in 3rd place, but with a game in hand, which could take us to the top on goal difference, and I can already see this being a very close title race. And Erling Haaland and his 5 goals against Norwich put us top of the league. And then we dropped off top spot right after when we drew to Brentford. We travelled to France to face Marseille in the Champions League, and after we took the lead, we struggled. Amin Harit smashed in a beautiful free kick. Haaland then put us back in front, but we couldn't stop the onslaught, and Marseille equalised and went on and scored a winner in the 88th minute. So I decided to change the tactic after those 2 bad results for the upcoming game against Watford, and I do think we need more depth in the midfield as well when we get to January. Did it work? Well, we won 5-0. We had 36 shots, 19 on target, and Watford just had 1 shot. But let's not jump to any conclusions. We did, however, go straight into a Champions League match with the finalists Leipzig, and we defeated them quite easily 2-0 in Germany with another 2 goals from Erling Haaland. And then we got a 2-0 win against Leicester straight after. From Germany to Spain, another win in the Champions League against Villarreal. A clash of the 2 best strikers in the league next, as Evan Ferguson has been carrying Wolves into a top 6 spot so far this season, but Erling Haaland is a different beast. And in this game at the Etihad, he scored 4 goals. Now Evan Ferguson did score Wolves' only goal, but this was the big Norwegian's day again, I guess. And 2 more league wins lead into a match against Arsenal, who sit in 2nd place. And that's not the result we wanted at all. Or this one against Newcastle. And now Arsenal lead the Premier League by a point and have 2 games in hand, with our next 2 games being the Manchester derby and my return to Stamford Bridge. And it was a Manchester derby for the neutrals, as it was a fantastic back and forth, with De Bruyne scoring the opener to Rashford equalising in the 20th minute. Erling Haaland pushed forward with the ball and got a second, but Anthony's strike gave us a Desmond Tutu going into half-time. And second half was very quiet until the 95th minute, when once again Anthony's worldie flew into our net. Gutted. Arsenal are now 4 points clear with 2 games in hand, but Erling Haaland has 32 goals in just 21 games. My return to Stamford Bridge was a lot more positive though, as Ruben Diaz picked up the first goal of the game and Victor Osimhen got a second. Badiashile did pull one back, but it was a nice 3 points to win. No rest for the wicked. We played Liverpool next and managed to pull off another win and 3 points. The FA Cup is very important to us this season and probably my #1 target, and the 3rd round win against Southampton was a good one. Another bad result in the league against Spurs follows, but 2 huge Champions League wins help us qualify in the top 8 against Valencia and Salzburg. And despite the Spurs result, it was a great month on the pitch. But what about off of it? Well, I mentioned needing depth in the midfield and declaring interest. Caicedo requested a transfer and his asking price is just 66 million. So not only did we wrap up that deal on deadline day, but we also got a second centre midfielder in James Ward-Prowse. Some other bad news is Joshua Kimmich broke his ankle, hence the reason for needing 2 new players. We took a trip to Ewood Park for the 4th round of the FA Cup, and it was a good day once again for Manchester City and a great day for Erling Haaland, who scored yet another hat-trick. And it's almost becoming not really impressive now when he scores 3, which is rather scary really, but we progressed to the 5th round with a 4-1 win. And in that 5th round, we defeated Cardiff, and again, Haaland scored 3 goals. The only result that wasn't great in February was a 5-4 loss at home to Everton. That included a big win against Arsenal. But we have Porto up next in the Champions League, the League Cup final, and the quarters of the FA Cup to come. So let's shift our focus to the Champions League for now, because we should really beat Porto fairly comfortably in the round of 16. And I would say that's what's going to be the case after this first leg performance. We put ourselves 3 goals up before Porto themselves got a consolation. The second leg was even easier, 4-1 win, and we go into the quarterfinals. Not that it's important to Glory Hunter, but we face United once again in the League Cup final, and it was another loss to Manchester United in the derby, this time 3-2 at Wembley, so the bragging rights go to them this year for sure. Leeds next in the FA Cup quarterfinals, and PSG in the Champions League. Don't go anywhere. To the Etihad then to face Leeds in the FA Cup, and Dusan Vlahovic, who hasn't scored as many as I expected this season, got himself the first. Of course, Erling Haaland got a couple of goals, and we breezed into the semi-final, dispatching Leeds 5-0. Of course, we play again against our bogey team this year, Manchester United, who sit in the league in 8th place, while we somehow close the gap on Arsenal in the Premier League to just 2 points. Into the business end of the Champions League, and Erling Haaland puts us 1-0 up, but Mbappe is set free over the top, and he is uncatchable and makes it 1 apiece. To the biggest blunder of the season from Donnarumma gifting a second for Vlahovic. It then caught me off guard seeing Evan Ferguson, who had signed, but he was involved and set up Mbappe to score a second. With the second leg being the game before the semi-final against Manchester United. But the second leg included one goal in Paris in the 92nd minute, and it was Kevin De Bruyne who scored that winner. After battering us all season, you better believe that I was up for this semi-final in the FA Cup against Manchester United, and we started strong. And we continued down all the way through, with Vlahovic scoring a second and Erling Haaland getting a third, smashing us into the FA Cup final, where we will face either Norwich or Tottenham. While our semi-final in the Champions League puts us against AC Milan, with a chance to play Manchester United again if we both make it through. However, that didn't look too promising when we took an L in Milan when Rafael Leao's cross found Calabria and we lose the first leg 1-0. We finally found ourselves in the tie in the second leg when Moises Caicedo levelled the aggregate scoring. Rafael Leao put AC Milan back in front and then an unlikely hero stepped up. Someone we haven't mentioned much, Phil Foden. He scored 3 goals and despite a little comeback from AC Milan, we hold on, winning the tie 4-3 on aggregate, and we have another Champions League final. This result here against Villa is an interesting one and a hugely impactful one as well, because that was the difference in us finishing in first place in the league and Arsenal winning the Premier League. With Chelsea, by the way, down in 7th place from winning it with us last season. Oh, and Erling Haaland, he has 46 goals. That is mental. Pep Guardiola was actually sacked at Chelsea as well. How embarrassing. It's time to stop laughing though and focus because it's FA Cup final time. It was 0-0 until the second half, but what an opening goal from Victor Osimhen from an extremely tight angle. And of course, Erling Haaland, who missed a lot of games recently, picked up a second goal, and Manchester City are your FA Cup winners. I left Chelsea for this exact reason, and we did it. Another trophy to add to the Glory Hunter cabinet with the Champions League final to play next, which of course is yet another Manchester derby, and we really need revenge for this one. We are fortunate to have our full squad available, which made it tougher to pick than I thought. Erik ten Hag lined up United with a classic 4-2-3-1 with Heung-min Son up top and Rashford from the left. They've made some strange signings in recent years, like the cat kicker Kurt Zouma, but it's brought them success. The graphic for our lineup didn't know where to put Phil Foden, which did crack me up, but it's time for our second crack at the Champions League trophy. Probably the easier one to get out of the 2 European competitions, but each time so far it's been an English bogey team in our way. Cross those fingers for me. It took just 8 minutes for the first highlight, and with us in control of the ball, I got rather excited until we just give the ball away, and United countered with one long ball from Anthony to Rashford from his own half, who didn't miss. Great. It's only the 16th minute and Manchester United are at us again down the left, and the ball is sliced through our defence to Anthony, whose shot still finds the bottom corner despite Ederson getting fingers to it. 2-0 United. And I straight up told the defence at half-time that that was purely unacceptable. Our best chances seem to be coming down our left-hand side, but we just can't get a good shot away. United started to sit back and let us play though, and we got closer to scoring when Osimhen's strike smashed off the crossbar. Again, it was Lucas Netz down the left-hand side who was making things happen, and his cross dropped eventually to Erling Haaland, who could only find the side netting. It was time to make some changes. I pulled Fraser off for Rodri, and I swapped Kimmich to right back, De Bruyne on for Caicedo, and Vlahovic on for Osimhen, and I allowed Haaland to stay central. Bellingham got injured right after though, and I had to think between Silva, Ward-Prowse or Grealish, and I went with the set-piece maestro, James Ward-Prowse. United had another spell and seemed to be able to play right through us with Bruno Fernandes, who smashed the crossbar and somehow we're still in this game. And it was a Fernandes free kick saved by Ederson, but the rebound could have also been an easy tap-in. Vlahovic gets it clear and Erling Haaland is barreling down the wing, but brought down by Bruno Fernandes, who has already been booked. And you know what that means? Bruno Fernandes is sent off, and that could be a game changer. I brought on Bernardo Silva in a false 9 position. I pushed a couple of players up, and it's time to go for it. Straight away, it played into an effect, and down the right-hand side, the ball was played back to Araujo, who brought the ball forward with a great cross, and Vlahovic hits the bar again. We keep the pressure on though. Ward-Prowse picks up the ball, finds Erling Haaland eventually through Rodrigo, who plays in De Bruyne, and goal! It's 2-1. Grab the ball, there's still 5 minutes left. But it's the 94th of 94 minutes, and we have one more chance. Luca nets down the left. He's found Erling Haaland. He tries to chip the goalkeeper, and it doesn't work with the last kick of the game. And the most prolific striker in the world misses a chance to level things up. And there you have it. Manchester United win in the Champions League final for the second season in a row, and we have lost 2 Champions League finals in 3 seasons. Absolutely heartbreaking. But what do we do next? Because technically England is complete, but this is probably the best place to get Champions League done. Because the only other options right now are Villarreal, Nice, or back to Chelsea. Or we could resign as being the Manchester City boss, hoping that a high-profile manager leaves their role, starting a manager merry-go-round where in Spain or Germany, and we can apply for that role.